Welcome to Full Disclosure. And today I've been particularly excited about this one because Chris Lekander was one of my first best clients when I started in the industry. And over the years, it's grown into a genuine friendship. So Chris, thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me, Jordan. I was really excited likewise.
So Chris is VP of Delivery for Wilco Source, a Salesforce consulting practice. And she's got her own business consulting company as well. So we'll start by, the things we're going to talk about today. You and I, I've placed a number of people with you over the years, diverse backgrounds, different skill sets, obviously mostly in technology. But the fun thing is the things that we've talked through, we've gone through over the years. And so we're not just discussing ideas, we're discussing, things that we've practically put into effect. So I know about your illustrious career, but I know you've, maybe tell a little bit about, high level of your background so we can kind of give people some context.
Sure, absolutely. So I have been in development for, maybe more years than I care to share. A long time. I started out in the financial arena in development, actually was a developer. And I moved from that into the healthcare arena and been in that for the last, a little more than 10 years now. And recently moved away from specifically healthcare and into, broader Salesforce implementations in the healthcare environment. So have a deep background in not only development, but also in the healthcare life sciences arena, where we do a lot of work with the pharmaceutical industry and with med device industry, and do work in what they call hub services, patient services, and REMS.
Nice. And we've worked together, when you were working for a large healthcare organization. And I think, a lot of your perspective was shaped around getting your team happier and more productive. So I know it's hard to sum up like how you gain a perspective over a 15, 20 plus year career. But in terms of the dynamic of, you were managing a team of 120 at one point, if I recall.
More than that, almost 300.
Dang.
Yes, it's big.
So obviously that's a unique position to be in. And how did managing that large of a ship get you to the place you are today in terms of your belief system around people management?
Good question. So, there's a couple of things there. So one is just the sheer experience of working through moving from that 150 to 300 was, enormous. So scaling, learning to scale an organization, doing it with a fairly lean operation from a managerial perspective, and bringing in good talent that can, work well, a lot of which you helped with big time. And I learned from that, there were things that you had to put in place that were totally different, because once you get beyond like 150 people, it starts to become something that's, you can't always keep track of every single individual that's in your organization. So now you have to put things in place that are more scalable. And the challenge with being more scalable is that you have less of the personal touch. So how do you bring in the personal touch when you're still scaling an organization? And you do that with processes, you do that with culture. And in the process in the large organization that I was in, it was a lot of learning that went on for me. I actually didn't, even though it was a really large organization, the resources that I had were limited, and the power to execute things that I wanted to do were somewhat limited. And so after a while, that became just not very good. It was untenuous, right? I needed to get a break, frankly. And I decided that what I wanted to do was something a little different.
Yeah.
I still really enjoy the idea of scaling. I still love that. And love the aspect of learning to do that while bringing in and keeping the culture that you want. And so what I decided to do is move out into consulting to do that very thing with the current organization that I'm with, as well as, with other clients.
It's so funny because it feels like there's so much content and perspective right now around, startup culture and how do you get things off the ground, but there really isn't a whole ton of conversation like this about how do you engage a team as large as you had. Was there a point where it was impossible to maintain the personal touch? Was there a headcount number, or was it more, it just kind of gradually happened over time?
I think the 150 is the tipping point.
Okay.
And there's some literature out there that talks about that being the tipping point, but that actually is the experience I've had in that organization and others, that at that point it becomes very difficult to keep track of individuals, everybody anyways. You know a lot of people, but not as many as you'd like to on that level. And then communicating what the culture is becomes something that you do more as a measure of speaking to the group, in a direction toward them, and less coming towards you. And that makes it harder. It makes it a lot harder to communicate and, what it is that you effectively want them to feel. Let's put it that way. You can communicate what you want them to know, and they can hear that, but it's harder for them to get the feeling of what's important in the organization. So you have to do that in person to person, and to instill it in everybody that you come across within your organization, and help them, understand what that is, so that it spreads from person to person.
Love that. Just a feeling. It's not just an idea.
Yeah. And it's walking the talk too. It's being visible, doing what it is that you want for other people.
And I think that is the battle in that, I don't want to say the battle, but is the friction point getting stakeholders in leadership to invest in that type of top-down culture importance, or is the fight more to get your middle managers to buy into making sure they're walking out that culture and that vision, if that makes sense?
I think it depends on the organization, because with a larger organization, it becomes more and more diffuse. But with a smaller organization that you're scaling upward, it's really the buy-in isn't the part that's very difficult with leadership and managers. It's the time to execute, the time to be able to do all the things you need to do to scale, because things change. It's not just the culture that you're trying to put out there at that point. You also need to, at that point, have the right processes in place so that people know what kind of guidelines they're working within. Otherwise, you have a lot of people rowing in different directions, right? They're not sure what they're supposed to do, and so they go out and do what they think they should do, and that's not always, in coordination with all of their peers. So the challenge is to at one point have the right processes, just the right level of processes, not too heavy, because smaller organizations can't handle heavier processes, and to make those processes still be personalized. The experience of those be very personal, and have the values, show the values that the organization holds.
Okay. That was really good. I know that I had heard conscious capitalism, the term, but I didn't know a ton about it until, you and I had started to discuss ideas for this. How did you come upon the conscious capitalism idea, and is that something that you're looking to implement in, your clients and at Wilco Source?
Good question. So I actually ran into it in stages. So the first thing was reading the book, Conscious Capitalism, written by John Mackey. He was the gentleman who started and ran Whole Foods for
Whole
years.
Foods guy, yeah.
Yeah. And he wrote that book, and I just, immediately connected with the information in the book. And it was what I felt like when I read that book, and then subsequently ran into the movement, which I'll talk about in a second a little bit more, that I had almost like come home, because it's what had been missing in my entire career. I felt like, yeah, you go through corporate organizations and there's a lot of talk about values, and you get things that are posted on the wall, and to varying degrees different organizations did better than others that I was in, at both having their values well known, and also that those behaviors exhibited.
Okay.
But it always felt like it was still not quite really what was going on. It was always about the money, right?
Yeah.
Which business is about money. So yes, that's super important. Nobody's going to say that that's not important. That's number one. And it's parallel and in my opinion, totally even with and equal to the values and the impact that has to be made within your organization, across your customers, your vendors, your stakeholders in general, and your entire community. And when a business does that, the better they do that, the more conscious they are, the more that business actually flourishes in its community and actually is sustainable. And those are the kinds of concepts that I found in the conscious capitalism movement, and that spoke to me because it always felt like I was missing something. Was missing. And it's this shareholder satisfaction that was always at the bottom line, and then people started to be not as important.
Yeah.
And when running into Conscious Capitalism, the book, it clearly showed me that this was not only possible, but that organizations who adopted these principles and actually not just adopted them but lived them, were really, really successful. Yeah. And not only were they successful, but they also are very fulfilling for the people that are in them. They get to be, for lack of a better term, no pun intended, whole people. and not just cogs in the machine,
Yeah.
So, and then after I'd read the book, it'd been some time, and I don't know how I ran into the actual organization out there, nonprofit organization, Conscious Capitalism. It has a national presence, and then here locally in Arizona. And I had gone to one of their events, and I thought it was pretty interesting. But what really got me started more recently is during COVID, they started to do a lot more online virtual meets, chats, and presentations, and I was able to go to a lot more of those, and then they were just fantastic. Local community CEOs that will come and talk about how they execute on these tenants and how successful they are with those, and it's just been fascinating. And so I said, I want to get deeper involved, and I actually started to volunteer for them recently.
Nice.
Having a great time so far. Awesome. with the team there at Conscious Capitalism in Arizona.
You can't. Trader Joe's, Southwest Airlines, Starbucks. These are companies that are proving that it can just be good business. Doing these things,
it is
good business.
It is absolutely. Well, and you know, Jordan, the tenants are important. You know, the fact that it's about higher purpose,
Yeah.
that it's about the orientation toward all of your stakeholders, that you have leaders that are interested in that conscious leadership, and that you also have build a culture that's conscious. Those are actually the tenets of the conscious capitalism movement. And within Arizona's group, you know, we talk through the tenets at a deeper level. There's actually like I forget what it's called right now, but it's a list of tenets that you can actually assess your organization with, and use those tenets to determine how conscious your own organization is, and to put in place those things that will increase the consciousness of your organization. And that's what the organization is there to do. Conscious capitalism is there to help mid-market entrepreneurs and other business owners to learn how to be more conscious in the way they practice business. And there's just fabulous stories. You know, I'd recommend to anybody to go join the organization. You don't even have to join to come to the chats. You just, you know, sign up for the chats and get to know the local leaders here.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I think it kind of naturally goes into my next question, which was, you know, culture as you know, a buzzword. And I think a lot of people are like, they don't know, it's like a subjective thing. Like they know they need a better culture, but they don't, like, you know, a lot of leaders just what does that mean for us? How do we even, you know, get there? And is this a framework that, you know, mid-market organizations can really buy into, to just give them direction on how to achieve that culture piece that they're striving for?
Yeah, I think it is, but it's a collaborative thing. You know, it's the tenants will help, and the assessment helps, and all of the information that conscious capitalism offers helps.
Yeah.
But it also there's a lot of soul searching involved in it for the business owners, for those that are the leaders of the organization. You know, what is it that purpose is? You know, it takes time to do. My experience with doing that in organizations and going through those exercises is that it kind of evolves as you go, and it's very difficult to just come up with one today. This is my purpose. This is my mission, my vision, and be ready to really live it. You know, you've got to look at, what is my organization doing today?
Yeah.
What do I want it to do? Who are we? What are we really here to do?
Yeah.
You know, and try that on for a bit and go through the process of, you know, putting together what those vision and mission and purpose statements are.
Yeah.
Try them on with the people that are, you know, helping to bring that culture to life.
Okay.
And that is really the process. And then from there, it would be easy enough to just publish that, right? But that's not really going to do the job. The thing that needs to be done next is to have activities and things that happen within the business that help draw out those values and the purpose, and that people can see and live and experience. Like, you know, for example, you know, we at Wilco Source have put together 5 pillars, one of which is community, and then volunteering is really important within the community. So we help people get time and actually encourage people to choose something to do in the volunteering world and go out and do that, you know. And then we also volunteer some of our time pro bono work to help companies do Salesforce and other implementations that they might not otherwise afford. So that's a value that we actually live. It's not just a word on a wall.
Yeah, which a lot of times it is just a word on a wall,
right?
As we know. That's awesome. And I think, is it a thing that you found over the last year or two, where like it becomes not contagious, but once you start doing it and you start leaders in an organization start seeing the benefits, that it kind of snowballs and gets a momentum of its own?
Yeah, I think that is. I have a really cool story about that, actually, is that we started putting some of those words even before we published what the purpose and values were. Some of those words started to be put out there in our branding and on our website. And we were in a call with somebody within the organization who'd never yet seen any of the information we were going to publish. It was right before we were going to publish the purpose, mission, vision. And she came on the call, and she was actually looking at the website, and she was trying to get, and I can't remember the reason why she was looking, but she was looking to see what the feel is of our company. And she saw all these words on the website. She pulled them out, and they ended up being a lot of the words that were about to be published as values. And it literally, it made her feel so happy to see these things that she was starting to cry.
Oh,
because
wow.
how important it was to her that these were the values of the company that she worked for.
Yeah.
So, it's just amazing. People feel it, and then they not only are getting the benefit of a good paying job, but also feeling like they're doing something that's important to them and that matters and is meaningful in the world.
Yeah.
That's huge, right? That's huge for connection.
And to be able to actually see proof of it and not just, words on a wall. Because I think there has been the last 5 years a cynicism of, the market understands that, people want to make a difference and they want these things. So you have organizations, we're not throwing anybody under the bus, but that might talk about it, but don't take the steps that you guys have to really start doing those things and having the impact that you guys are going for. It's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really important to me personally, obviously, because of the things that I've shared around, what I felt was missing in my past. But it's also important to me because of what's been happening in the last year. The turmoil that's happened across the United States, and some of those things actually really came home this past year for me personally, around my background, as a person. Diversity is super important to me as a person, and culture supports that. If you have the right mix of culture, the values around integrity, around listening, for example, just listening in and of itself. To listen without an agenda. To collaborate with another soul in creating something. That is enhanced through diversity. And we need that in the world today more than ever. But people if they don't have the time, if they're always just chasing a process for making more money, and that leaves out those values, and it leaves out the time to do something else, frankly, beyond work, outside of work, so you can be, again, whole people, and participate in what's going on in the world. So we're so busy and so focused on do, day, every day I'm running around trying to get whatever task done I need to have done. We miss that connection. We miss the participation. And that participation in turn means that, who's really minding the store outside of the business, right? Who's back at home, and who's like making the community work well. Not to say there aren't thousands and thousands of people that are doing that. But all of us should be doing that. And if we're all so busy working on just one thing in work, and that's all we have time to do, the world is missing out on a lot of good creative participation from everybody. And we also then miss out on learning about how to be diverse and how to get along with one another better, and how to have a community that's very strong and isn't just there in the times of disaster, is there all the time.
Yeah. And I know, because we've been through, it was always, you were working so much, the team was working a lot, we were all just reacting, and so you go on that way as long as you can, but without having mindfulness around these things, it is a rubber band that's gonna rip apart at some point. It's just a question of when. So yeah, I mean, like that again, why I'm excited that we're talking about this, because this is not just words, it's things that we've lived for years, and you longer than me, but to be able to take a step back and say, you know what, enough, we need to start having a more serious conversation about it, I think is awesome.
Yeah. And vital, right? I mean, just the path forward to raise consciousness to the level where people are living more fulfilling lives and not just running on that treadmill every day is going to be transformational. We're not there yet. It's going to take some time, and who knows? I'm not even looking at this as during my lifetime kind of change. It's something that's an ongoing progress, and I feel like as we get better at it within businesses, it's going to take off, but it's going to take time for folks to really understand it really well and learn how to do it really well, and also make money at the same time, and not focus on one to the exclusion of the other.
It's a good point. And I think the market, with everything that's been going on, it seems like there's, not that there aren't bad things going on in the workplace, because there are, but would you agree that the tolerance level for extreme management styles or unrealistic expectations or discrimination in the workplace is as low, the tolerance for those type of things is as low as it's been?
I don't know if that's true or not, Jordan. If you would have asked me that question like a year and a half ago, I probably would say yes, it is as low as it's ever been. But after the things and events that have taken place, and even though that's not a workplace conversation necessarily, it rose to my attention that we're nowhere near where I thought we were, frankly, as a society. There's a lot to be changed, and the time to change those things is what I'm after. It's without the people who, there's a lot of people who mean to do that and who are doing that as best that they can, but with as little time as they have, they aren't really able to do that inward reflection to figure out, what part of this is me, right? What part of is going on? How am I interacting in the world where I am preventing somebody else from being successful because I have some kind of privilege, for example, right? And it's really difficult because privilege is a really tough thing for people to even see, because when you have it, it's just normal, right? So when not knowing what it's like not to have it and to take that perspective is really difficult. And we need more time and more organizations working on things like that to raise awareness of people to understand how important it is to know that not everybody comes with, that easy, it's not even easy path, because everybody has their struggles. That's another thing. I've had a lot of conversation with people who said, but my path wasn't easy. And it's like, no, certainly, everybody has their challenges and everything, but there's also, it's not a level playing field either.
Some are harder than others.
So some are harder than others. And, when there are whole groups of people, that whole communities that are excluded from the conversation or excluded from the ability to progress as fast is another, you know, that's a huge problem. It's just a huge problem.
Yeah.
And it can't be ignored anymore, in my opinion. We should be done with that. And yet we are in a place now where, you know, it appears like we are not only not done with it, we are, you know, recycling back, you know, toward the past, and going to have to reinitiate, you know, what it means to be diverse, and reinvent it, really.
Yeah.
It needs to be reinvented, because it's not the same as it was 20 years ago. It's different today. It's different because there's even a different mix of people today.
Okay. I love this. See, how many times have we had conversations like this at the, you know, the restaurant? And hey, I feel like now it's the same thing. We're on camera. Right. I love it.
Yeah. Same.
You hope that, I mean, in my lifetime, there's never been a time where, you know, the discrimination has been this much coverage behind it, and this much kind of, you know, none of us can run away from it anymore.
Yep.
The hope is that, you know, it actually impacts some real change, and not just, you know, just the same cycle, you know, going on over and over again. B Corps. I know that I didn't even know that B Corps were a thing. And when you told me just the concept, and that it's something that is increasing in adoption, it fits in so well with kind of what we've talked about. Let's discuss, you know, B Corps and how you see it as a vessel for, you know, the conscious capitalism continuing to, you know, be more of the norm.
Yeah. The B stands for benefit corp. And when I first heard of B Corp a while back now, I heard it and I thought, what's that? Because, you know, must be something that's made up, right? You know, benefit corp, you know, you heard an S corp, you know, a C corp, etc., but it's a B Corp. And is that a real thing? And looked it up. Sure enough, it's not only a real thing, it's actually a legal entity, just like a C Corp, only now is a B Corp, which has a little different rules around it. You know, it's just like corporations as they were, with this added element of a third-party assessment that is voluntary but required if you're going to incorporate as a B Corp. Okay. And that assessment is much like the conscious capitalism assessment. You know, it's a stakeholder assessment. It's how is this company, you know, doing with regard to all of the stakeholders that it interacts with, and including the stakeholder of the planet, the environment. You know, so all of those different areas get rated essentially once a year by an independent third-party company that rates the company for how they're doing sustainably. And what I love about this is that you can go out on their site and you can look up who are the B Corp, and this gives us the ability to, how I like to say it is, vote with your feet. So, you know, you can move away from corporations that aren't necessarily doing this. You can move toward corporations that are doing it, and invest in, you know, spend your money at, you know, work at companies that are actually invested so much that they've actually legally incorporated to force themselves to stay on the path of sustainability. So I think it's going to get bigger and bigger, and that people are going to start to, when it catches on, it's going to be amazing, because it's going to enable us to vote for businesses in a new and different way. You know, we can't tell right now very easily, right? You kind of get, there are companies that have reputations one way or the other, but there's no independent assessment, and there's no understanding of that from the outside. So you don't know when you're buying a product from that company. Are you buying from a company that has good sustainable practices, or are you buying from a company that's taking advantage of its stakeholders in order to produce that thing that you're buying, right? So it's going to be really amazing, I think, when we are able to see more companies in that B Corp status and choose to put our money there rather than,
Yeah.
with those that aren't as invested to the health of their communities, the health of their stakeholders.
And you'd see that just being a whole ecosystem of its own, where, every industry has representation in, as a B Corp. So I think it might just become good business, people understand
that's the goal for sure. That it becomes, that's what you do as a business, right? And that it's as important as the product that you actually deliver is how you deliver it, and how well that helps the community that brings it to us, and that serves that company, and that creates that product.
Yeah. Well, this has been awesome. And I mean, there's a lot here that we could run with. Is there anything else that you, before we kind of do the whole wrap up, that you would want to touch on?
No, from a concept standpoint, probably not. Maybe and I don't know if I'm really as prepared for that as I'd like to be, but from I don't know, something to say around what it is that I'm doing with it, right? With VeriScale. And maybe we can edit that in.
Yeah. So do you want, I'll tee up a
part. Yeah, go ahead.
Do you want me to, I'll tee up a question about the consulting, or do you just want to be like, and I know that you're also now working with client, and I'll roll it out as like that you are doing consulting in this space. Okay. So, and I think there are very few people that I could have on this podcast that have had a better working relationship over the years. So as you watch this, know that Chris is not just saying these things. She lives them, and she's also now doing consulting with her consulting practice, VeriScale. Talk a little bit about, how you've been able to take some of these things and really help companies make the adjustments to be more mindful.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, definitely. Thank you. Love to say a little bit about that. And what I do as a consultant personally is come in and listen for what is the zeitgeist of your organization, culturally. What are the things that you want to do from a scaling perspective? Yeah. And what are the objectives that you have? And then take all of that and put it together in a plan, multi-year plan, one that can be executed to in baby steps, but that includes the financial aspect, all of the business operations aspect, and also why you're in business, that purpose and the culture and the values. So what I'd like to do with my clients is come in and listen to the leaders, come in and listen to the various people who work in the organization, get a feel for what it is they're trying to do, who they are as a company, what community they're serving, what customers they're serving, help align that team, especially at the leadership level, align them to what those values are, what those goals are, and put in place the next step processes and the next step culture that enables them to get to that goal. And what I found in doing this it's been, first of all, I love doing it. And second of all, it's been very successful. It's amazing how it works. It's like you put it, this is the one thing I would say, you asked me this question a while back around BuyIn. The one thing I find that folks are having a little bit more trouble like taking a hold of is the idea of planning, putting a plan in place, and then making your investments, executing that plan, and having it work.
Yeah.
There's a lot of thought process or fear around it's not going to happen. I just need to react to everything that's happening right now.
Yeah.
But when you take a company that's in reaction mode and move them from reaction to planning to execution, suddenly things start happening much more easily.
Yeah.
Not easy, but easier than reactive mode. And then after a few successes of, plan, execution, succeed, a few failures in there too, but you make those subtle changes that enable you to succeed, and you get a couple of those under the belt, and all of a sudden the floodgates get just sort of unleash, At that point, that's when the client is ready to say, okay, what's next? What's the next plan? How, and how do we grow in the next phase that's appropriate growth for us, that is in our culture and is in our wheelhouse for what we do well as the customers we do it for. And it's been amazing. It's an amazing ride. I just love doing it. So, the more companies I get to do this in, the better.
Well, and I know it was a few months that we had worked really closely, and for founders, you don't know what you don't know. And a lot of times just talking through these things with someone with your background and your skill set, you identify blind spots that you just didn't know that you had. And that for me was impactful, because so many people are but culture, we're dealing with what's right in front of us, and the scalability and the culture, that's, we need to get further along before we worry about that. But again, you don't know what you don't know. And you helped me tremendously in just how you were able to get me thinking, differently about some mental hurdles that I had. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Well, and that's the game, right? It's figuring out what it is that is in your way and getting clear of that. And then things just move forward. And then beyond your stage, when you get to the point where you have a set of people at a leadership level, all of those people have to do the same thing in similar ways. And then you need to gain alignment with all of those people, at least to a certain degree, in order for those plans and execution to actually work really well. So it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. I love working with people like you. I love working with teams as well. And it's just, nothing is more, nothing gets me out of bed more than that every day.
We really all just you want to have bigger and better problems and bigger and better challenges.
Well, and bigger and better ways that you execute to the point where you're feeling good and your customers feel good. That was the big change for me coming out of the organization that I was before, is not only scaling for making the business work, but also having those experiences be amazing. The clients coming back and saying, in technology, this is really difficult, right? We've had clients come back and say, that was every Friday we meet up with you guys and the news is good. And and you're like, well, how can it be any better than that? We're delivering and everybody's happy, not that there's no bumps that you hit in these years. But that's not how it goes when your values aren't there. And that's not how it goes when you're just trying to make the dollar and you're just trying to squeeze one more dollar out of a situation. So it's been amazing journey thus far, and I expect it to be even more amazing going forward.
Awesome. Well, hey, Chris, again, thank you for being here. This was awesome.
Thank you for having me, Jordan. I am so happy to be here. You and I have been friends for a long time, and our friendship I value extraordinarily. Above many, in my life, especially from a business relationship, because you are definitely kindred spirit. You're the guy who, has these values, lives them. And it's great to be friends, and it's great to be here with you today. And I'm so happy to experience the video aspect.
Hey, here we go. Really cool. And we have the same birthday, which that kind of was crazy to me.
It is cool. It's crazy and cool. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Jordan.
All right. Well, I'm just gonna end the recording, but you should
Okay.
stay on.